The morning sun slowly rose above the waters of the Hellespont. Gentle waves reflected the golden light as hundreds of Macedonian soldiers prepared for the greatest journey of their lives. Behind them lay the kingdom they had always known. Ahead stood an unknown world waiting to be conquered. Alexander walked calmly toward the flagship without speaking a single word. Every soldier watched their young king with complete confidence. There was no fear in his eyes, only determination. He understood that once the fleet sailed, there would be no turning back. The ship slowly left the shore, their oars moving together in perfect rhythm. Royal banners danced in the sea breeze while the fleet crossed the narrow strait toward Asia. For the first time, Alexander was leaving Europe behind to begin a campaign that would change history forever. Hours later, the distant coastline finally appeared. Green hills stretched across the horizon as the fleet approached the silent shore. The soldiers looked ahead with excitement, knowing they were about to enter a land that few Macedonians had ever seen. Alexander stepped onto the beach first. He paused for a brief moment, looking across the vast landscape before him. One by one, thousands of loyal soldiers followed, forming disciplined ranks along the coastline. Then came a moment that would be remembered for centuries. Alexander lifted his spear high into the air and drove it firmly into the ground. His army watched in complete silence. The symbolic gesture filled every soldier with confidence. Cheers echoed across the shoreline as the campaign into Asia officially began. The celebration did not last long. Hidden among the rocky hills, silent scouts watched every movement of the Macedonian army. Without wasting a single moment, they turned their horses and rode across the countryside, carrying urgent news toward the eastern commanders. Inside a distant military headquarters, experienced officers gathered around large maps spread across wooden tables. The message was simple but alarming. A disciplined foreign army had entered Asia under the command of a fearless young king. The commanders immediately realized that this was no ordinary invasion. Careful preparation would now decide the future of the region. Meanwhile, Alexander continued his advance without delay. His army marched across rolling hills, fertile valleys, and narrow mountain roads with remarkable discipline. Long lines of soldiers stretched across the landscape, while supply wagons and cavalry followed in perfect order. Every village they passed watched silently as the enormous army moved deeper into unfamiliar territory. The journey was difficult, but the determination of the soldiers never faded. Rivers were crossed, steep hills were climbed, and every mile brought them closer to their first great challenge. Along the way, local allies joined the campaign, increasing the strength and confidence of the Macedonian force. As evening arrived, the army established a vast military camp beneath the fading light of the setting sun. Hundreds of tents filled the valley while campfires slowly illuminated the darkness. Soldiers quietly repaired armor, sharpened their weapons, and prepared themselves for the battle everyone knew was coming. Alexander walked through the camp without royal ceremony. He spoke calmly with his commanders, encouraged his soldiers, and carefully studied every report arriving from the scouts. Confidence filled the camp, but so did the awareness that the next sunrise could change history forever. The camp remained silent as darkness slowly covered the valley. Campfires burned across the hills while soldiers sharpened their weapons and prepared their armor for the coming battle. Every man understood that tomorrow would test their courage like never before. Before sunrise, Alexander walked through the camp alone. He spoke calmly with his commanders and looked into the faces of his soldiers. There were no long speeches. His confidence alone gave strength to every warrior standing beside him. As the first light appeared, the Macedonian army moved toward a broad river. A cool morning mist drifted across the water, hiding the opposite bank. The soldiers waited patiently while Alexander climbed a nearby hill to study the land ahead. Slowly, the mist began to disappear. Across the river, another great army stood waiting in perfect formation. Colorful banners moved gently in the morning wind, while rows of disciplined soldiers remained completely still. Two powerful armies now faced each other for the very first time. The river flowed quietly between them. No arrows filled the sky, no swords were drawn, only silence remained. Alexander looked across the battlefield with complete confidence. He had crossed into Asia, united his army, and reached the moment that would define his future. Behind him stood loyal soldiers, ready to follow him into any battle. Ahead waited an enemy determined to stop his advance. History was about to change. The next sunrise would witness the first great battle of Alexander's Asian campaign. The Battle of the Granicus was about to begin.